Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show, Beautifully Bruised in the CPS show. I am so glad that you were able to tune in today. We have a lot of information that we would like to share, and hopefully, it would be useful and helpful to you in some kind of way. Again, I must give honor and glory to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because I know without Him, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair today. He have brought me through so much and have allowed me to have grace and mercy that he continues to share over my life in so many different ways. So I definitely do believe that you should give credit where credit is due. I'm not ashamed to share my belief and my faith. I think it's essential actually in the life and the world that we live in, that you have to have something higher than what you see in this world. And Jesus has definitely been that for me. And I actually refer to him so as my daddy. So I'm truly grateful for this opportunity, this platform, even to turn events, for thinking enough about different people that go through different valleys of life to have a platform for us to come and to communicate and share stories. And hopefully, irons will sharpen irons and we can grow and go from it. Without any further ado, I must also share, along with Grace, she's definitely the producer on the show that helps us to bring things together. So she's appreciated as well. Again, I just believe in giving credit where credit is due. So I think that's important. And with that being said, I do have a returning guest. A lot of people really, really enjoyed Amber's story. I've heard people say, or either they responded to me and said, hey, what she said really made sense, or either, hey, I went through that same ordeal. So just the way she explains things to me it makes it very easy to understand. And she has, listen, Amber is a warrior. I met, her along with Jennifer. She brought in other guests that have really been through the valleys of the storms, and they are still riding the storm. They're still persevering. They're still going into the trenches and sharing their life personal stories to help enlighten, to help sharpen and make people more aware that this is really happening. So I think it's important that I think the best way to learn is from somebody who actually went through it themselves, because it's personal at that point, and you have a whole new set of eyes once you've been through it personally. So without any further ado, we have Amber Collins, who is back on the show. Amber, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely, Amber. Like I said, you had a story like no other. Everybody has a unique story, but yours with that judge and how you overcame in a moment of time by the grace and mercy of God, the way I see it, it is something that's worth being told. And even on her social media pages, Amber is great about, really, if you follow her, and I'll give you that chance, Amber, to share your social media towards the end of your story. But,
Okay.
yeah, because you want to follow her, because it's almost like you're watching these acting scenes of her personal life.
Yes.
So you won't get lost, because it's literally like you're in a movie watching her real life and real situations. So that's how I met Amber. When I seen her pages, I'm like, oh my gosh, she is really detailed and really don't mind sharing her truth. So that's the reason why I originally had reached out to her. And again, I just think it's, even people that have watched it said that, hey, I saw her story and I can relate to it. I understand it. And it just really got people engaged in what she was saying. So without further ado, I just want to mention that today's topic, I look at Monday as Monday motivation. You came off of a weekend of God knows what. Sometimes people just need to be inspired, encouraged, motivated, or just someone they can feel they can relate to. So I've been noticing a lot, and this has also been in my spirit, that depression, people dealing with suicide, mental illness, whatever that may look like, it's on a rampage. And, sometimes
Mhm.
it is. And again, Amber can say she can actually relate to that as well. And that's another reason why I want to bring you back, Amber, because personally, you've experienced, you say, dealing with depression, dealing with, sadness, even toxic relationships. Many people are in them and don't know how to get out, or what it looks like, what they need to be aware of. So with that being said, Amber, I just want to ask you, with your own personal life, how have you dealt with the sadness, such as depression, toxic relationships, even suicide? How, even if I know you say you've had 13 CPS cases, if I understood you correctly. So
Yeah.
without any further ado, Amber, you fully know how to explain yourself very well. So please go ahead and share what you're led to, to share at this time.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I've been battling with depression, manic depression, that turned into manic depressive bipolar, and then a slew of other issues. But it started when I was 13. It started with medical issues and stuff. It Without getting too far into detail, it's my first suicide attempt. I was 14 years old. I took a bottle of ibuprofen. Um, I had started what I describe as hearing voices in my head. And as I've gotten older, as situations get really, really stressful, those tend to pick up and get a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it did have a significant impact on my drug addiction. I opened up last time. I'm a recovering drug addict,
You did, yes.
and
And
my
thank God for it.
depression is my number three trigger. My first trigger is pain. Second trigger is um, family relationships, and the third one is depression. And my depression can last for months.
Really?
Um, it gets so bad to where even with medication, I can't get out of bed. I won't eat. I won't drink. I won't go to the bathroom. I've gotten a lot of kidney infections as a result because I'm not eating or drinking or going to the restroom. I'll go a while without showering,
Wow.
which then just makes the depression even worse because then I feel like crap because I can't do anything.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
I've had numerous suicide attempts, ranging from, I mean, I don't know what all I can say on here, but overdosing on medications and um, cutting myself.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this, Amber. Only feel what if there is a certain amount that you want to disclose, you're safe with that. You don't have to
Okay.
give any more information than necessary because sometimes people can say enough where you can kind of have an idea of where you're probably going what you've been through, so you don't have to indulge in all the information because you've said, like I said, you're very great at explaining yourself. So I don't want you are I don't want you to feel pressured and saying more than what you have to, since how to get the main information out. And I just want to share with you that we had a viewer, just M Young, was saying that she'd never heard your story before. So, and obviously she's tuning in to show support for you, because again, you'll be surprised. Yes, she did. She just sent and thank you, M Young, for that comment. It is appreciated. You'll be surprised though, so many people that's really dealing with sadness, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. And I just think that, this is a great way to let people know that they don't have to be alone. They're not in this by themselves. So with that being said, please continue on. But I just want you to don't feel pressure to say more than what you have to, only with what you feel comfortable with, because we are on a platform that also deals with, CPS cases, obviously, and how we can try to help encourage each other during that process, or even someone, like I said, years ago, I had that encounter as well. So I do know the significance of that, of feeling that you have support during such a trying time. So, but again, Amber, I don't want to cut you off, but just share only what you feel comfortable with sharing.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree. I feel depression and everything else dealing with mental health
Mhm.
um, is kind of like a taboo topic. Nobody wants to talk about it. And then when something drastic or tragic happens, it's people get judgmental rather than trying to understand the mental health aspect behind it. Like, we have a lot of mothers who unfortunately are doing things to their kids, and
Mhm.
not that it's necessarily an excuse or anything, but a reason behind it. You got to look at them, and are they going through depression? Do they have postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis?
Mhm.
I was watching a video on TikTok the other day, and I ended up doing a video on it,
Mhm.
where a lady's husband or baby daddy had recorded her completely having a meltdown,
Mhm.
and it said, this is what postpartum depression looks like.
Mhm.
And majority of the comments on there, and a lot of them were from women, saying how she doesn't need to have her kid, the baby needs to be taken away, this and that.
Oh.
And not postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, it's very dangerous if left untreated and it's not talked about. I had postpartum depression,
Hmm.
and it was really, really, really bad. The daughter that I had it with was my middle daughter. You don't have to have it with all your kids.
Right, right.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and a lot of people think, well, if you had it with one, you have to have it with all, or if you didn't have it with one, then you won't get it at all, and it doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Um, my middle daughter, I had it so bad to where I could write down on a piece of paper what I wanted to do to her.
Wow.
And it scared the living daylights out of me. And so I went to the doctor. Thankfully, I had a good support system. My husband, who at the time was my boyfriend, very, very supportive. He helped make sure that I wasn't alone with her. So if he was at work, I either had his sister with me or his mother with me, or if my family were available, then they were with me. I was never alone with her, just so that I wouldn't do anything.
Right.
Um, I went to my doctor and I got put on a safety plan. I put myself on a safety plan.
You did it too.
And then, yeah, because how I felt like I was capable of doing it. And that's the scary part, when you're not only thinking it, but when you know or you feel you're capable of doing it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this was early 2000s too. So I didn't know anyone that had been through postpartum
Plenty of people don't
depression.
talk about it, like you said.
Yeah, the only thing I knew was Andrea Yates, and I didn't want to be like her. But that's what people think automatically when they hear it, and that's not always the case.
Right.
The baby blues is another thing that they call it, and that is postpartum depression. It's the
Yes,
exact same thing.
that's true. And
Um,
okay, that's good. I'm glad
yeah.
yeah.
And so I tried getting into therapy then and there, and the town that I was living in, which is the same town that I had the worst CPS case ever in. They would not treat me. I told them the seriousness behind it. I told them exactly what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
And they told me that it didn't really matter. They didn't have any openings for me for, I think it was like 12 or 16 months.
Wow, that's a long
And I was
time.
like, okay, I'm wanting to kill my baby, and you're telling me that you can't help me.
Like over a year before they can see you. Are you serious?
Yeah. Even though my doctor had referred me over to them and put me as a high risk because of what I wanted to do, and I could literally step by step list what I wanted to do. So it was high risk, but he didn't necessarily want to get CPS involved because all of that. So thankfully he didn't do that.
Right.
I ended up I dealt with a lot of it on my own, but never fully got treatment for it, if that makes any
No,
sense.
that makes a lot of sense, Amber. And since you mentioned that, that actually leads me into my very next question. For our listening audience, I would like to ask you, what are some of the personal signs that you begin to recognize within yourself? You've already gave pretty much some of the descriptions, like you said, thoughts you had in your mind, and you can actually write them down. Almost visualize you actually taking on that act. But is there
Mm.
anything else, like, I don't, well, you did say you found yourself sleepy or fatigued where you didn't want to.
Yeah, I didn't really want to do anything. And then just any little. Okay, so she was my second born baby, so it's not like it was my firstborn child, so I knew what to expect.
Okay, gotcha.
But her incessant crying would just drive me crazy.
Wow.
Um, more so than like a regular cry where like, okay, let me change your diaper, let me feed you, let me try to burp you, let me try to
Physical
rock you.
cries, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was her crying it was like nails on a chalkboard.
Wow.
And I honestly think that might be why some parents shake the baby. I don't know. That's
Yeah.
of course my assumption, but
Yeah.
it's just you want it to stop because you can't handle it.
Wow.
And so that when it got to that point, that's when I knew
Something.
something was off. It wasn't my regular depression, because your body does go through a lot of ups and downs during your pregnancy and when you're getting clean, or when you're post pregnancy.
Right.
And I had my kids super super close together,
Mm-hmm.
so my body never had that time to fully go back to normal.
Feel to reset. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And from what I have learned, when you have kids back to back like that, you're, of course, this is just what was told to me. I'm not a doctor.
Okay.
But when you have them back to back like that, you are more likely to develop a depression, like a postpartum depression, or even psychosis, which is even 10 times worse
Wow.
than just regular postpartum depression. And yeah, my oldest was 6 months old when I got pregnant with my second. And
Oh,
then my third, I got pregnant when my second was 7 months old. So I had my kids very, very, very close in
that makes
age.
sense. Because it's so interesting that you mentioned that because I actually have spoken to someone recently and they noticed that since pretty much like you just said, they had their kids back to back, and therefore they noticed that they begin to start feeling more depressed and
Mm-hmm.
dealing with I guess that would be considered postpartum depression. And to be, like I say, I believe in being transparent. I do believe transparency transforms. Because even when I wrote my book, I was sharing that I felt God told me, you need to share what you went through. And I'm like, I don't want to share that. But I do believe in my spirit. God said, that's what I'm going to use. People can hear what you've been through, what you overcame, and that they can use that as leverage to be inspired to not give up. So it really means a lot when people can share their truth, because you never
Mm-hmm.
know what you're doing to help someone that is in that same low valley in life, that's discouraged and even want to give up. And so much so, the reason why I'm saying this, Amber, and again, I appreciate your honesty, is because even when I had my children, it's been years ago. One of my sons is actually grown, and actually, that's the child I'm referring to. But I noticed even during that time, at the time I was in like my early 20s, but it's something I felt that came over me that I didn't recognize. I didn't understand. Because, you give birth, your body obviously go through substantial amount of changes. But again, like you said, it is a difference to it. And
Mm-hmm.
difference of sadness to me, of depression. So I tell any mom or any new mother, or even a mother that's, like you said, it don't have to be with every child. But wherever you are with your pregnancy, with whatever number of children you have, if you are feeling something that doesn't quite feel right, or, my mom always taught me, your body will speak to you,
Yeah.
and take heed to that. If it's something that's not registering correctly, or you feel a little bit more sadder than, or that's a word, sadder, but if you don't, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody, you're not
Yeah.
gonna always feel the same. But if you notice that, gosh, I've been a little down longer than what I normally do, or like you said, it's harder to get out the bed right now, or either I can't even deal with my baby right now, that could be some clear signs or indications that maybe you need to look into getting help. And there's nothing wrong with it. Many people, go through it. Amber is on the show today. She suffered from it and overcame, and here to tell her truth and her story about what she's been through. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to give you the mic back, Amber, but I also want to share, I don't know if you recently heard a story, and it is dealing with CPS, where a mom felt like she could not God, recover from all the things that she said she had to go through with the services, with everything, the drug testing, the plethora of things they take you through. And Amber, that personally, because you said you've
Yeah.
13 CPS cases, my God. So, but this particular parent, Amber, the mom, she felt like, obviously to me, I connected to stress. I connected to, she became overwhelmed, maybe was depression, and to honestly, to just sadly say, she became so engulfed with her feelings and her emotions and CPS, she decided that if she was to end her life, that maybe CPS will realize how serious this is from the stress that you undertake, that you go under, and she rather have her life to be to end her life because of the stress.
I
Did you
think I know what you're talking about. They
Okay,
did a Netflix show on it, right?
they probably have. I'm gonna do some research and look into it. But I heard another story, a reliable story that shared with that. That's what she did as a wake up call to CPS, saying, "Hey, I can't handle this pain. I can't handle this. I can't handle this pressure. I really do love my kids, but I cannot take the stress that you're taking me through." So, as a sign of CPS, she killed herself. So again, that's why this is so important, because you have no idea the level of stress, whether people are talking about it or not, that people are really seriously going through. And being able to communicate like you're doing today, Amber, sharing your truth. God, what if she could have heard your story? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
It's sad.
it's very,
It's really sad.
it's very, very, very sad. Everybody, my grandmother will be 106 in a few weeks, and she say everybody can't take pressure. You know, I'm not, and I'm not sugarcoating it or anything, but you'll be surprised what you could handle the next person may can't.
Hmm.
And that's why everybody should not be painted with the same brush. We're all uniquely different. And so, anyway, Amber, but again, please, I'm really getting so much out of your story. So, I love that you gave those signals of what it felt like and what you decided to do to look into it by going into your doctor. Can I ask you, what did your doctor recommend at that point, or wherever you want to share, with your
Well, at that point, because I had gone back to him and I told him that the place that he had sent me to, and unfortunately, because I was a military dependent at that time,
Mhm.
and they couldn't get me in on base to see a therapist, so I had to go off base.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly why. I think they were busy with the active duty military at that time,
Mhm.
and so I had to go off base.
Okay.
But unfortunately, because it was such a small town, that was the only place that I could go to that took my insurance.
Oh, wow.
And so when they wouldn't treat me or anything, I went back to my doctor. I told my doctor. He was amazing. He was the first doctor and one of the only doctors that have ever listened to me about anything without making me feel like I was crazy, whether it was dealing with my depression, my physical disabilities, anything. I could open up with him and feel heard and listened. And so I would check in with him via email or a phone call every week just to make sure that I was okay, let him know that the baby was okay.
Wow.
Um, I started really diving into my journaling. That
Mhm.
way, when I would go for my just regular checkups, or if I had any other issues, I could bring my journal in with me, and then we could go over it just to make sure that I was on the right page.
Right.
He told me that there is absolutely nothing wrong with when I get overwhelmed with her, or when I got overwhelmed with her, just to put her in a room and walk away. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. Um,
Right.
just so that you can hit a reset button, because once you do something, there's no going back.
Correct.
And so there's absolutely nothing wrong with stepping away, taking a breather, and hitting reset. And
Correct.
so that's what I would have to do. A lot of the times when we moved out of my mother-in-law's house, if my neighbor wasn't home to help me, I would have my daughter, my oldest, help me. So
Mhm.
at about 2 years old, she was the one that would feed the baby for me. She would give her the bottle.
Mhm.
She helped change diapers for me,
She's
unless they were like, the number two diapers, then I did it. But for a while, she even thought it was her baby, because I unfortunately depended on her so much to help me when I was alone.
right.
Otherwise, I don't think I would have been able to get through it without my neighbor, my husband taking over when he would get home, or
Mhm.
especially my oldest. I mean, 2 years old is very young to help mommy, feed
Right.
the baby and change diapers. But I mean, she was a trooper
Wow.
helping me with it. And I owe a lot of it to her, because I don't know if I would have gotten through with it, because the psychiatrist in the town wouldn't see me.
I honestly command, even, it's so funny. Kids little like that, they have a lot of times they want to help. I mean, they little bitty
Uh-huh.
themselves, but I've seen some little bitty kids and they be like, I got it, and I hold them, and they just have the heart to want to help. And I thank God for that. And we have Jennifer that also have sent you a message saying, love you, Amber. I love the encouragement that you have for each other. The support is so needed, and it's such a blessing as well. So, but yes, I thank God that you utilized your little 2 year. Maybe she's going to be a nurse or something one day, Amber. I don't know, doctor or something, because
She's very strong-willed. She could probably do it. She likes to boss everybody around. My other two, they still don't even listen to me. They listen to her better than they listen to me.
actually she knows how to get what she wants too. So listen, we
Hmm.
believe her. So you just never know who you're raising one day. So that's a blessing also too, Amber. I wanted to, since you mentioned too how you was journaling it down, I actually think that's a form of being therapeutic when you're able
Mhm.
to, share your inside thoughts on paper. I think that's another reason why I wrote my book, my story, because I felt God actually told me you need to start writing down what you're going through. And I never thought about writing a book or doing nothing there. I didn't really journal a whole lot other than school, to be honest. I'm just being transparent. But at that time, but when you get it out on paper, you get it out your head and on paper, to me, it is presenting a reset within you. It is
Mhm.
your release within yourself. You might not have a physical person to share what you're going through, but just to get it out of your head and write it on paper, it's another form of release. So I think that's great that you shared that. And hopefully, many of our viewers that do feel like they're stressed out, they do feel like they're overwhelmed, or they don't feel like they can make it past today. And I'm gonna be honest with you too, Amber, because it is times like that you be like, oh my God, am I going to overcome this? Am I going to get through this? Especially if you've been a victim to CPS, because you're going through so many challenges and obstacles. And from financially, you're trying to, see if you need reputable representation from all you're dealing with a government. And then at the time, you're still trying to maintain your own sanity and continue with your household and your children. So, of course, that'll bring anyone stress and feeling drained or depleted. But my grandma, again, I refer to her quite a lot because she's wise. I don't think God empowered her nearly to be 106 for nothing. So that's why I
Mhm.
refer to her. But Amber, she would always say and tell me, you might give out, but don't never give up. So that in so many words is saying, yes, if you need to take that reset button, you need to time out, whatever that look like. I know even for right now, my doctor say, sometimes you just start exercising, going out for a walk, anything that'll help you calm down or release stress, and it helps. So, it could be something as simple as that. But what I want to ask you too, Amber, with the 13 CPS cases, by the grace of God, not only that you survived, but you overcame. Can I ask you, is there any particular case that you remember easily, that you can relate to, that was your most stressful case where you did feel overwhelmed or whatever the case might be, or depressed?
I think besides that, the last one that we talked about majority of the time last time, I would have to say probably my last CPS case, which was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ironically enough, the same child that I had postpartum depression with, our
Mm-hmm.
relationship has always been very rocky, very very rocky.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I had her as an emergency C-section. I didn't get to bond with her right after I had her, and I have in my research I've found that if you don't have that time to bond,
Mm-hmm.
um, you do tend to have somewhat of a troubled relationship because you don't there's no that skin to skin contact. There's no I didn't even get to touch her. I didn't get to hold her until she was 2 weeks old.
Uh-huh.
Um, it it was very difficult. I almost lost her. And so our relationship has always been very spotty. Um, she well last year things started getting really really bad. She was lying a lot, manipulating everybody around her. She's very very good at manipulating people into believing her, and I have just gotten able no, wrong window, sorry.
That's okay.
um
It happens.
Sorry. um I have gotten to see through her lies, essentially. And so last year it started getting really, really bad.
Mhm.
Um, I went to the school to ask for help because I didn't know where else to turn. I was on the verge of actually going to CPS, somebody who has, as an institution, created so much anxiety and so much stress.
Mhm.
To where I get an email from CPS Energy and I just see the letter CPS and I immediately think that and I hyperventilate.
So that's
Like
just
that's
you
what
being
CPS has
triggered?
done to me. Yeah.
Wow.
That like and I was gonna go to them for help because I didn't know what else to do with her.
Wow.
Um and so I went to the school. They told me that they would do like a behavioral evaluation and stuff.
Mhm.
And I told them that she lies a lot. Like, and I know it sounds bad talking about my daughter like that, but that's just the reality of what it is.
Mhm.
And she ended up lying. about me. She told them a lot of horrible, horrible stuff. She told them that I allowed her to be raped. She told them that I forced her to, uh-huh. Um, I'm
Wow.
sorry. Yes, Vicky, all of that.
Wow.
Sorry.
You're fine.
She told them that I refused to let her sleep on the bed, or with a pillow or a blanket. I'm very verbally, emotionally, and physically abusive towards her. I relapsed on really, really, really heavy drugs. I had different men in and out of the apartment at all hours of the day. I'd be gone all hours of the night, and I would do anything and everything to get my drugs. And then, because of all of the abuse and allowing her to be raped and everything else, she now developed an eating disorder. None of which was true. Absolutely none of that was true.
Wow.
But of course, because she's a child, she's telling the school this, they listen to her and they call CPS on me. They don't even talk to me first. They know that she lies. She's had a history of lying there at
Oh my
school.
God.
But instead of consulting with me first, they just
Right.
immediately call CPS. And that I was in a constant state of anxiety for about 2.5, 3 weeks, because that's how long it took for my caseworker to come.
Oh my God.
Um, and because first they go to school in a different district, or in a different county,
Uh-huh.
and so the case had to be transferred from that county over to this county.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry, just a second. Vicky, you
Okay.
gotta drive. Sorry.
No,
Um, so once they finally switched it over and everything, the caseworker, I'm sorry, just a second.
okay. And while you're
I'm
doing,
sorry, my child is being difficult. Um, when the CPS worker showed up, she told me what all of the accusations were. That's how I found out everything, because
Mhm.
the school didn't even tell me all of it. Um, and um, thankfully that I had a good caseworker.
Thank God.
Although I was very, very, very scared, because Bear County CPS department is known for being
Aggressive or
very discriminatory
some,
towards
wow,
parents with drug addiction issues.
really?
Um, yeah, pretty much everybody that I know in my area that has dealt with CPS because of drug issues, they've
Mhm.
all lost their kids.
You know
It
what?
didn't matter.
Hmm.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
Well, when you said that, I have someone that actually that worked did work affiliated with CPS, um, and in so much so, she shared that normally the clients who have had previous drug history, they're normally seem to be treated the worst
Yep.
versus
Yep.
someone dealing with abuse with their children. They see the drug abuse as worse, if I understood it correctly.
Oh, that's absolutely true. So, out of all of my 13 CPS cases, I had two, I think two, maybe three of them dealing with my drug abuse,
Hmm.
including this last one from last year.
Hmm.
All the other ones were either like neglect or physical abuse.
Right.
With the neglect and the physical abuse, I was treated very well. I was, referred to as Mrs. Collin, never Amber, never Mom. It was very respectful,
Yes.
for the most part. But then my drug abuse cases, it was the mother. I had caseworkers roll their eyes at me when I would tell them what was going on. I just from personal experience dealing with them, when it's a drug case, it is true. They really truly do treat you like the scum of the earth.
Like discrimination, you think?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like they're like, "Oh, they're doing drugs. We
Yeah.
have to get the kids out."
Right.
That's why everybody that I know in this area, in this county, that has a drug or a CPS case dealing with drugs,
Yeah.
Jennifer's one of them. They all have lost their kids, and
Wow.
either they've lost their rights and they finally gave up because it was too hard. I have another best friend who was doing good, And her sponsor called CPS on her, even though she wasn't using. And she ended up losing her kid, and losing the kid because of that, because of the lies. She ended up relapsing as a result,
Oh my
and
God.
she still doesn't have her child back. She's good now, she's clean now, but she still doesn't have her child back.
He still doesn't have.
Um, yeah, so there was an insane amount of anxiety when the last case that I had. I even offered to go do a hair follicle test
Uh-huh.
to prove that I'd been clean for an extended period of time.
Right.
And she was like, no, it's okay. It's expensive. I offered to pay for it. She's like, no, don't worry about it. I'll,
Patient, you don't worry.
yeah, the last caseworker.
Okay. Okay. I,
Thankfully, she told me too that I was a high risk because of how many cases I had. She told me after talking to my therapist, my primary doctor, and the doctor that I see for my addiction, she told me that it was really, really good that I had all of them on my side. Otherwise, she would have had to put in for a removal because of the seriousness of the accusations that my daughter made against me.
you know what?
And
Wow. Wow, Amber.
it was all because she didn't like that I called her out on her stuff. And she figured she didn't plan on CPS getting involved, but she thought that and she admitted this to me and her sisters. Her father, she still denies this.
Uh-huh.
But she thought that the school would just call and tell him
Uh-huh.
that I was using again and that I was putting her in these situations, and
Uh-huh.
that he would just pack them up and leave. So that was her goal because he's
Right.
more lenient on her than I am. And it just didn't happen that way.
I am so glad you shared this because to me, just listening to what you said, and I had another guest that had dealt with a previous history like what you're sharing now. It's almost like they just automatically, no matter where you are, what the situation may be, they already see you as deemed.
Yep.
Like, they don't, like you say, they don't even address you properly. And that tells a lot by the way they even communicate with you. Not even
Mm-hmm.
your name, or you say they just another mother, like another number, another statistic. And so that's it. It speaks volumes because if somebody's it's already have me, what is it about court? You're innocent until proven guilty. But as soon as
Mm-hmm.
you have a drug case, you're already guilty.
Yep.
You're already guilty in their eyes, and that's really sad because people do make mistakes. Again, like I said, I've never looked down on nobody in life because I've always been a believer. No matter what, I've had counselors to tell me, literally say, I can't believe you never done drugs or alcohol. And I'm like, really? But I just never, again, that's why, but you can never look down on people because everybody done been through different walks of life. And a beautiful thing about it is just because you went through something don't mean you can't come out of it. You can't
Yep.
overcome it. I just think that's sad for them to have people that have made a mistake, but they really want to do well and do right. Like you said, you have friends that they became clean, but they still was being penalized from their past. And
Yep.
unfortunately, it went downhill from that because they never, I guess, saw them as fit just because of their history. So, wow. Amber.
That's exactly how it looks like. Even this last caseworker, when she came in, she was like, "Oh wow, it's clean."
Like
Because
she,
drug addicts live in a dirty house. We all live in crack houses apparently, even though that's not true.
right. You have some people that have overcome drugs or that are like millionaires. They own
Oh yeah.
corporations. So it ain't where you start, it's where you finish. So I think it's great that you are bringing that to the light as an example of someone that had that mistake in the past, but you've overcame it. You have all your children, your work,
Hmm.
you're moving on with your life. That shouldn't be the end of people's story. And again, I related to the lady because of CPS never seen her fit as a mom that should have their children. She committed suicide because they just seen her not fit to be a mom and never would give her kids back. And she ended her life because of it. And so, like you said, your friend, even though she was doing the work, but they still never seen her as redeemable. So therefore, what is it? You say
She ended up relapsing on her drug of choice. I
wow.
mean, she's clean now. She's coming up on, I think, about 9 months or so,
Oh,
if
good.
I'm not mistaken. So I mean, she's doing pretty good. She's doing really good for herself, but she was doing good before that happened.
So is
It's
there a way
just
to still get her kids back possibly or get it appealed?
she is fighting. She finally got a good lawyer. Her lawyer is actually fighting for her rather than against her, like the last lawyer.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
and she's got visitation now. She finally got overnights. So she is slowly starting to see that light at the end of the tunnel. It took a couple of years to get here.
Wow.
But that's also because she had a lawyer that honestly shouldn't even be a lawyer. They shouldn't have their license to practice law. It was just absolutely horrible.
I believe you. All lawyers are not good lawyers. That's why I really always try to say, make sure you have a lawyer like Attorney Vince, someone he's been practicing, I believe, from what I heard, 30 to up to 40 years, someone who knows CPS laws, someone that's aggressive, someone that's willing to fight for you and your children. So
Hmm.
I try to mention it as much as possible because I know the significance of how important that is. Because if you're paying that kind of money, you want to make sure you're paying someone that's going to represent you correctly and to overall have you be reunited back with your children.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So that is so important. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, you're good. I just thought of something. The way that they look at us, drug addicts, they also look at you. It just dawned on me. I'm sorry. They also look at you the exact same if you have a history, especially like a serious history of mental illness. I have
Hmm,
a family member. I won't say who,
okay.
but she has a significant mental health issue, like history, mental health history,
Uh-huh.
and her ex-spouse, used it against her, and she's still to this day fighting um, to get full custody of her child. Her ex is absolutely horrible. He should not have custody of this child, but he has painted her out to be this insanely mentally unstable parent. um that isn't true. She's good if she's on her medications and everything. She's doing really good now, but it's just paying for a lawyer that's willing to help her is draining everything. And even at that, the lawyer isn't doing anything for her, but she doesn't have the money to go to a different lawyer because she's put all of her money into this lawyer. And it's sad. It's really, really sad the way that we get treated for one or two mistakes. And mental health, you can't help that.
Right.
You cannot, when it comes to mental health, trust me, from someone that suffers with anxiety, depression, PTSD, schizoaffective disorder, I would not choose to be like this. I hate it. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy.
Wow.
And so to sit there and be made to feel like you're choosing to be like this, even drug addiction, it's an illness, despite what, a lot of people say. It's a disorder.
Right.
You don't choose to be like this. I don't choose to have to take a medication so that I don't get violently ill.
Right.
um I would love to be able to get up. I mean, now I do. I'm good because I'm clean. But like back then, like I would have given even when I went to rehab, I had no idea how those girls got up every morning and didn't have to use something before they did anything. It's not always a choice. And mental health is not either. And a lot of times, mental health,
Mm.
substance abuse, and toxic or abusive relationships, they're all intertwined.
Connected some kind of way. And
Yep.
another good nugget that you just dropped, Amber, because they do intertwine some kind of way. And I've even heard too, oh my God, you just dropped some major nuggets because when you was speaking, like you were saying, you didn't ask for it to be in, have this condition, or what you've been through, because it's almost like cancer.
Hmm.
People don't ask to have cancer. That's just something that unfortunately your body has taken on. And I know my mom had 3 different types of cancer, God bless her soul, before she passed. And she terribly went through it. Obviously, she's no longer here. So, but I'm just saying that who would want that for their life? Where your hair start falling out, you lose your weight, you become very fragile or frail in your body, and you just, life isn't the same. So who would want that, any type of disease or any type of sickness or illness? And I think that it's so apparent that people need to start seeing mental illness as the same way. It might not be the same thing as cancer, but it's also an unwelcoming disease or condition.
Yep. And it's incurable.
And there
There
you
is no cure for depression. It's always there. It might go away, but it comes back just like cancer. Cancer goes in remission. There is no cure for schizophrenia or any of the other issues out there. And then, like you said, with cancer, if I came out and said, "Oh, I have cancer," I've got, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you need anything? Can I help you?" I've got people donating money, GoFundMe and everything. But when I sit here and say,
my mouth.
I'm a
Yeah.
I'm a recovering drug addict, or I suffer with bipolar, I'm schizoaffective, I have PTSD.
Right.
It's the
It's
complete
always,
opposite.
yes.
Oh my God, how do you still have your kids? You shouldn't have your kids.
Mhm.
Um, it's it's absolutely horrible the way that people treat people with illnesses like cancer versus people with illnesses like mental health or substance abuse. It's very, very, very different.
It is.
Very different. And I think that's why a lot of people don't talk about it, because you come out and say it and you get treated completely different. I put on my social media,
Yes,
I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter. I love, listening to music, watching movies, cuddling up with a good book, but I'm also a drug addict. I also suffer with PTSD and everything else. It's just, that's not who I am. It's just one of the many hats that I wear. But
correct.
that doesn't define who I am.
Doesn't define who you are. And again, Amber, you are a great example and advocate of someone that can overcome. They don't have to stay stuck in whatever this is that's been presented to you. You have pressed through the mark and you continue to fight on. And to me, that is a warrior in my eyes. And again, I appreciate your honesty, because a lot of people, like you say, they're ashamed to tell you their truth. They're dealing with it too, but they're
Hmm.
behind closed doors. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
just because you're not talking about it, don't mean that you're not experiencing it. And
exactly.
like you also mentioned, I notice it depends on what type of condition you have. Sadly, if it's a disease like cancer or I don't know, just to me that just stuck out like a red thumb because I understand why people should be supportive of it because it is a disease that has no cure.
Hmm.
Hopefully you, by the grace of God, though, I've heard people that have been cured with it. So again, that's why I say, listen, nothing is impossible with God. That's why the importance of having your faith, because he can get you through many things. But in case
Hmm.
if that is not your story, um, you know, um, uh, you know, it might be something where you have to go through treatment, cancer treatment or dialysis or whatever it is that you're going to have to go through during your journey. But just like you said, just because it may not be have this face to it as cancer, it might be a mental illness. It doesn't mean that it should be any less thought about or considered or taken serious rather.
Hmm.
So I think that is very important to share because it is a stigma where if you say anything about mental illness, oh, okay, lock the doors. Here she comes, here he goes, bring the
Yep.
kids, get away from them. And that's not right because like you said, a lot of times these are people dealing with this and they didn't ask for that. A lot of times you could be in a toxic, grown up in a toxic family or a relationship or dealing with an unfortunate CPS caseworker that lacked integrity and you've been through hell and high water. And by the time you come out, you might be dealing with something mentally because you've been
Yep.
so stretched and pressured and like I say, my attorney told me when you come out of this thing, and this was years ago, you're gonna come out looking like a junkyard dog. And I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, where in the, I didn't hear this in the description that you're gonna be, I didn't this in my memo. She said they just gonna take you to and fro so much where you're gonna come out with maybe some bites and plugs out
Sorry.
of your body. No, you're fine. Like a dog that had been fighting in all these different neighborhood battles that then bit some plugs of meat out of you and you're limping, you're walking with a limp, but you're gonna make it out. That's because they take you through so much mentally, emotionally, physically,
They really do.
they do. So, and sadly, a lot of people don't overcome. sadly, they're still fighting for their children. And these are credible people. Not saying they didn't make mistakes, but I always say, don't put a period where there should be a comma. Because again, people can overcome their mistakes. Just give
Yep.
them what's needed to help them to overcome their mistakes. So, with that being said, Amber, you have dropped so many nuggets and gems and knowledge and wisdom to help so many of our listeners. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Because I have one last question I want to ask you. Is there anything you want to share, or do you want to? This would be a great time to share your social media pages where people can follow you to get information or ask you questions or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I'll share that. One thing that I want to share, another thing that my doctor told me to try doing for my mental health, because I've been going through it, especially this past 6 months, but the last couple of weeks,
Okay.
I've really been going through it.
Okay.
And so, and I told him that I wanted to go once I get financially okay. I want to go on a vacation.
I know that's
And he told me that you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to go anywhere on a vacation, and not necessarily a staycation. What you can do, and I've done that, I did this, it was part of my homework that I had to do, and it worked. He
really.
told me to put on a movie that
Uh-huh.
doesn't take place here. If I want to go to Italy, watching a movie that takes place in Italy. And if I want to go to France, watch a movie that takes place in France, and put myself in that movie.
Uh-huh.
And it's like a mental vacation in that movie. And I'm telling you, it works.
It does work.
It works. It's the same thing like with my books. When I read a book, I put myself into that book, but I've never done it with a movie. Um, and so I've done that, and it got me out of a really, really, really dark place a week and a
It
half
takes
ago.
you out of mentally, it takes you out of where you are and takes you into that location,
Yep.
like say Italy, France, Paris, the Bahamas, Hawaii, wherever. Oh, Amber,
Hmm.
good. That is so good for people that is, like you say, may not be in the best of mood or best of spirit. Everybody can use that advice, Amber, whether you have
Hmm.
a CS case or not. Everybody
Oh
wants
yeah.
to.
And you don't need to like have it. Everyone's got a phone. Go on YouTube and put a movie up, and there
Wow.
you go. And it helps. It works.
I hope people are listening and I hope they try it and they will respond and give us their, what happened. Did it really help you? Like it helped Amber to escape whatever, or just get away you're trying. I'm going to try it too. And I'm going to let you know. I think and again, it's affordable.
Hmm.
You don't have to pay all this money to go on a physical
Yeah,
location.
it's free.
It's
It's
free.
free.
So that's something we all can use. So, oh wow, Amber, that's a great nugget too. So, with you saying that, in case people want to respond to you and say, "Hey, Amber, I tried that. Here's what happened to me. This is how it helped me," or whatever the case may be. Can you share your whatever platforms that you have that people can follow you and connect with you?
Yeah. So I'm finally starting to get back to being active on TikTok. My mental health got really, really bad, as I mentioned, so I've been kind of absent from there. But
Thank God for that.
On TikTok, it's Amber Collins, Colin 83, and then Facebook, it's Amber Ablighter.
Okay.
Yeah, Amber Ablighter, maybe 86 at the end. I think
Spell
it's
it.
just Amber Ablighter. And then Instagram, I believe it's Amber Collin. I can go down and comment and put it out there,
You
but I
can
know for
say
sure my
that.
TikTok is Amber Collin 83 because 86 was taken. So of
Okay.
course everyone thinks I was born in 83, but I'm not. My
It's just
daughter aged me 3 years.
they can do that. So yes, I get that too. So
Ugh.
I get that too. So again, I wanted to give that information. We have a few more minutes left, Amber. But you did give out. Is that all the information you want to give in case somebody wants to contact you or reach you? Is your social
Yeah, I
media
think that's
platforms?
I have a Twitter, but I don't really know how to use it.
Okay.
Um, I got it, and then it took a while to get it because they banned me for something, but I never used it, so I don't even know how I got banned from a
Right.
comment.
That happens.
But I am active on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Not so much on Snapchat. I'm really good with taking pictures on there, but I suck at
I
messaging
love
people.
Snapchat. Me too. I've never really connected with people, but I love they set up. It's really good.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
They're very smart. So with that, Amber, you have definitely, I think, have encouraged people with your true story. You have given out great advice that even the stay vacation that you can do in your home wherever you are. Like if you want to go to Paris or Hawaii, just put yourself in that movie and you're there in your mind. And the most important thing is it's taking you out of whatever you're feeling sad or depressed about. That's the
Mm-hmm.
goal. So it takes you out of that posture, that place. So I think again, Amber, I love your spirit because you definitely care about people and you're willing to share to help them come out of whatever they're going through as well. My very last question I have for you today, Amber, and this will basically be, towards the end of the show since we're running out of time. Time goes fast when you're really learning and you're listening and
Yeah.
getting information, but I love it. So my last question to you, Amber, is that statistics show that many parents, unfortunately, have lost custody rights with their children since they may have been connected to relationships that are not safe for their children. For example, a relationship that maybe it's a sibling. It might not be a personal relationship, but it could be somebody in their in their household with them and their children that might have had a previous any type of criminal history or anything of that sort, or that is that they're connected to. And these individuals, like I say, do live with the parents in the home with their children. And it can be, like I just mentioned, personal or a sibling or anything of that nature. What advice can you share with our listening audience who might be dealing with this type of situation, and how can you encourage them that may also, if not already dealing with depression, or may being depressed behind what they're dealing with due to this, rather whatever mental illness it might look like, suicidal, being suicidal, depressed, or just overwhelmed, whatever the case may be, or it may be in a toxic relationship. Can you give us some more, because your advice is so helpful, if somebody is dealing with, like I say, a CPS matter where it might not even be them dealing with a criminal history, it might be the person that lived with them, a toxic relationship, a boyfriend or girlfriend, a family member, and the CPS comes and say, hey, if you don't get rid of this person, we're going to take your kids away, or you don't get willing to do the help to take your classes to help you with what, you're dealing with parenting wise. What advice or encouragement would you give them to try to get through with what they're dealing with?
Well, if there's the like the mental health aspect of it, there's some really, really, really good hotlines out there. The suicide hotline is a really, really good
Yes.
one. They
Yes.
do not judge at all whatsoever. There are some other ones that are online where you can talk to them or you can text them. I can't think of the one off the top of my head, but if you watch the newer season of Ginny and Virginia on Netflix, they have it on there at the end of one of the episodes. It's really, really good. I use that to get my daughter some help.
Okay.
And then, and of course, there's anonymity with all of it. You don't have to give out any information that you don't want to give out.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
There's another one for like toxic situations where if you're with a very abusive person and something is going on, I've been seeing and hearing a lot of stuff where they call 911 and they order pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And the 911 operators already know, especially if they're like, I think you got the wrong number. And you're like, no, I know what I'm doing. I would like to order a pizza. They automatically know it's a DV situation.
Oh, that's
And they will, they'll ask, well, what's your delivery address? And you give the address for the delivery and they send police officers out there.
I never heard of that, so they're doing that
Yeah.
now. Oh,
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of stuff where they're doing that, which I think is pretty cool because if you're with someone who is very aggressive and abusive, they're not going to let you go on the phone. But if you're like, oh well, let me get us something to eat, don't
right.
worry about it. I'll get some pizza or something. There you go.
Good, because you're being discreet and getting help all at the same time.
Yep.
Oh,
And you're being able to do it with him right next to you, and he's thinking you're ordering pizza, although you're not.
good. I have never heard that, Amber. Thank you so much for sharing that. That
Yeah.
is so good. And since you said that, Amber, you made me think. I'm telling you, make me think. I wrote down these numbers. I just want to say there is a national suicide hotline for someone else that that is going through this or know someone that's going through this. This is a 24/7 platform. I have to hurry because I know we're pushing for time, but it is a 1-800 number that you can call if it's you personally or someone else that's dealing with it. It can remain anonymous and confidential. That number for the national suicide line is 1-800-273-8255. Again, the National Suicide Hotline number is 1-800-273-8255. If you know someone or if it's not yourself, that is a number you can call to get help. Also, along with if you're dealing with someone that may be dealing in an abusive relationship, whatever that may be, however it may look, please do not hesitate. There are people standing by to help you. And that number for the abuse, toxic relationships, whatever it may be, mentally, physically, emotionally abuse, that number is 1-800-799-7233. Again, that number for emotional abuse, toxic relationships, however it may be, to help someone, please call 1-800-799, and it stands for SAFE. It's 7233, 1-800-799-7233, and 7233 stands for SAFE. So these are numbers that you will remain confidential. They will provide you the necessary help to the best of their ability to get someone to help you. You can play this back at any time. If you don't get the number, you can rewind it and it will air. So again, Amber, thank you so much. Is it okay if we still stay in contact? Because from time to time, I might want to bring you back on again. You are a lot
Yeah,
of
of course.
information. So I do appreciate you, Amber. Thank you again. We will be in touch and you have a great day. Thanks again, Amber.
You too. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, we are actually over our segment today, but I hopefully that it was helpful to you. Remember, all I want to tell you is to keep God first. Don't never give up on your children, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Latrika Jones.